Hey everyone, this is Raven Willis again, and I am back with some more trademark information for you. Today we are going to talk about who should DIY their trademark and who probably should not. I cannot tell you how often I see in groups, and I get this question personally, they say, oh, you don't need a trademark lawyer, you can do it yourself. Well, sometimes that is correct, and sometimes that is not correct. Folks like to think that just because I'm a trademark lawyer, I'm always going to say, oh no, you need a lawyer. Well, I don't believe in that necessarily. I don't think that you always need a lawyer to do your own trademark. But then at the same time, I do not always think that DIYing is the best route to go. Not when you're talking about the law. Let's talk about the red flags for when you probably should not be doing your own trademark. The first red flag is if your trademark uses heavily a lot of common words. And when I say common words, I mean words that are like really trendy, that everybody starts to use. Or if you're in a particular industry and certain phrases or certain words are always going to be used. If your trademark is comprised heavily of those items, I don't recommend doing your own trademark. Here's an example. In the beauty industry, say like in hair care, they use the term tresses, right? Or coils or crown. Those words are heavily used in the beauty industry. If your trademark has that word as its primary component, it could be difficult for you to get a registration. One of the requirements for a trademark is that it needs to be unique. Because a trademark is basically saying hands off, like competitors, you cannot use this phrase to sell your products or services. You can't primarily use words that everybody else needs to use or that everybody else is currently using. That defeats the whole purpose of a trademark. So if your mark is comprised primarily of a word that is, again, common, then that's going to be the first red flag that your registration might be a little bit more difficult to handle, and you might want to seek professional help in order to do that. The second red flag is if your mark is embroiled in any type of dispute. For example, if you see someone else using the trademark that you have been using, I don't recommend that you now go and try to submit a registration for your trademark kind of after the fact. When I say dispute, that doesn't mean that you're not in the right. You could be using it first and then somebody else comes along. If you received a cease and desist from somebody else saying you're using a trademark that is too similar to mine or is exactly like mine, again, at that point, I do not recommend submitting an application for a registration at that point. And the reason being is when you submit an application, you are attesting to certain facts, whatever the facts are that you put in your application. If you attest to the wrong thing and you put the wrong thing in your application, that is going to potentially hurt you when you go back to handle the dispute between, whoever that is. I highly, highly recommend that you get a lawyer to help you with that. So again, we can craft your registration application in a way that is obviously honest and truthful, but is in a way that is going to give you the best chances of success. Okay, red flag number 3. If your trademark is similar to another's trademark. This doesn't mean that either your trademark or their trademark is registered. It can be an unregistered mark. That is not the time to DIY your own trademark. And again, it kind of goes back to my second point that I just made. You want to make sure that your registration is submitted in a way that is on its face obvious that your mark is in fact unique. Sometimes that means maybe if there is a mark in a class of goods or services that might be a little too close for comfort, but there's another class that applies to you that might be a little bit more open. maybe that's the direction to go in. Well, you would never know this if you're DIYing your own trademark, or if you're choosing a lawyer that's not very experienced in trademarks, or who isn't really paying attention to your mark. So I don't recommend going that route. I do recommend seeking the help of a lawyer who actually is going to be paying attention and taking a look at these things and finding a path for you. When I handle my clients' trademarks, one of the most important things that I do is I take a look at the lay of the land, so to speak, for, okay, what exists in the class that my client is currently selling in. If they're selling in several classes, I take a look at all of them and I see, okay, what's going to be the path of least resistance, but that provides the most protection. And it requires, sometimes we kind of got to snake our way through a couple of things. And again, we have to submit the application in a very strategic way. And it's not to say that you can't learn how to do this yourself. It's just to say that you probably are not going to be able to learn to do it with the skill that you need to do it in a reasonable amount of time. Your time is better spent doing other things. But, it's possible. I learned it. You can learn it too. But again, if that's not something that you're going to be doing repetitively, there's just not going to be much return on that level of investment. So seeking an attorney to help you with that is going to be your best bet. Those are the red flags. Let's talk about some of the things that exist where I feel like are pretty strong indicators that a DIY would be a great idea for you. So the first indicator is that your trade name or your business name or whatever it is that you're trademarking is extremely unique. And when I say unique, when I see trademark names that are completely made up, that to me is the strongest type of trademark. And the reason being is because there is no association with that mark aside from what you actually build into it. And usually those types of trademarks are so much easier to register. When I get a trademark where it's made up, I'm like, yes, thank you. Thank you, Jesus. Because I know it's going to go smoothly and it's going to be great. If your mark is that way, like if you've made up a name, shaboody bobbity bop, right, and you sell pencils, like that's going to be fantastic. I would say DIYing it is a pretty good way to go. So the second tip for when you probably want to DIY or when DIYing is more acceptable is if you've been using your trademark for a really long time and you don't give a flippity doo-dah about what exists, you're going to submit it anyway. Now, I've had some clients like that. I've performed a search. I've done the analysis. I've said, okay, it's going to be, kind of difficult or this or that. And they're like, I don't care. I don't care what the search says. I've been using it. I've built a multi-million-dollar brand around this name right here, and I'm going to trademark it come hell or high water. So then I'm like, okay, well, maybe DIYing is the way to go. But again, back to my other red flags. If there's any type of dispute that is involved, if there are several other marks, especially ones that have been registered that are similar to it, then I would say, okay, hold your horses. Maybe let me help you out with the application. However, but if it's highly unique, highly unique, and you've been using it for an extremely long time, and again, it's like, it's not even gonna matter what it says, then I'd say, DIYing probably is not a terrible way to go. But before you DIY, make sure that you do your due diligence and you research to make sure that there are no other confusingly similar marks in existence, because you do, when you submit the application, you do have to attest to the fact that, yes, I have performed a search and no other trademark exists that prevents me from submitting this application. And you definitely don't want to lie on that. I hope this is helpful. If you guys have questions, let me know. Please be sure to like and subscribe to my channel. We're just getting going, but if you subscribe, that would make me happy and I will love you forever. Alrighty, let me know if you have any questions. Thanks for watching. Bye.